Hello, my Family Sunday friends. Today we are going to be creating a watercolor winter forest using many beautiful techniques which are going to leave us with these really stunning winter textures. Our materials for today are going to be watercolor paper as well as some watercolor paints. Of course, you'll also need something to hold your water and a really big paintbrush if you can find one. Some of our more special materials today are going to be a white and gray crayon and some table salt. Now you're probably wondering how we're going to be using crayons within our painting. Crayons allow us to do something called wax resist. If I press down really hard on my piece of paper with a crayon and paint over top, the wax from the crayon is going to repel the paint. What that means is that the wax and the water don't like one another very much, so they move away from one another, and I'm left with these really beautiful white spaces underneath. When we're using table salt, I'm going to add lots of water and paint onto my piece of paper, and I'm going to make sure it's nice and wet. While it is still wet, I'm going to sprinkle some salt over top. Now what happens is the salt sucks up all of that paint as it's drying, and we're left with beautiful texture. This is something that we can then rub off once our paint is dry, and we're left with these frosty kind of textures. Now to get started, I'm going to begin outlining my trees by creating vertical lines. Vertical lines are lines that go up and down. Now I've decided I'm going to create some trees closer to me so they're a little bit thicker, and some trees are going to be further away so they will appear thinner. If you would like to add some branches, you can also do that. Once I finish creating my outlines, I'm going to fill them in with my white crayon by pressing down quite hard. This is going to create that wax resist so that when we paint over top, we are left with those white spaces for our tree trunks. Something to keep in mind is that we need to keep space in between our trees. It's in the space that our paint is going to go, and we're going to leave room for all of that beautiful texture that salt is going to create. The kind of trees that we're drawing today are called trembling aspens, and they have very special bark. So as you can see, I'm going over top with my gray crayon to create some details. I'm creating horizontal lines. Horizontal lines are lines which go from side to side. I'm also adding in some shapes that almost look like eyes, but both of these together really make our trees look like trembling aspens. The next technique we're going to be using is something called a gradation, and that is when we go from one color to another color and they blend together really beautifully. So my colors I'm going to choose today are going to be blue and purple, which I'm going to put down on either end of my paper and then gently blend them together using my paintbrush. Now to get started on our painting, I'm going to wet my whole piece of paper with just water first. This is going to allow my two colors to bleed and blend together really beautifully. I added blue to the bottom of my page and gently worked those brush strokes up towards the middle of the page, and then I added purple to the top and gently did the same thing, overlapping those brush strokes in the middle of the page to blend those two colors. While my paint is still wet, I'm going to add my salt and then leave it to dry to wait for those results. Once my paper is dry, I can gently brush off that salt to reveal all of the beautiful textures that it's left underneath. And that's it, our painting is done.